Hey y'all, my name is Sarah and I love to talk about movies. And today I have an underrated gem for you guys, Pathology. But first, this is a gory, violent, graphic film. So if you can't handle it, skip it. This is a film that is so well made that I'm kind of shocked that it doesn't have more popularity. The movie opens with two students in bed together. They're in a dorm. He's getting ready to leave and he's, saying his last goodbyes to his girlfriend. As it turns out, he's going to be taking an internship in another city, so they won't be seeing each other for a while. When he lands, he gets straight to his apartment. It looks like everything has already arrived ahead of him, and he immediately starts, getting settled in. The next day, he gets up bright and early. So he heads over to the medical center. He walks through the building. He can see other residents there, people walking in and out, a lot of corpses. And he walks into a lecture hall where the professor, his mentor, Quentin Morris, is sort of giving an overview, introducing the purpose of their field of study. Now, what is a pathologist? A scientist who studies the causes and effects of diseases, especially one who examines laboratory samples of body tissue for diagnostic or forensic purposes. Afterwards, he speaks to the lecturer and finds out that he actually knows his girlfriend / fiance's family very well, and that he'll be keeping an eye on him during his residency, and that he has heard a lot of very good things about him. His reputation seems to be well earned, and that he expects great things. He's then introduced to the current head of his residency program, I assume, who actually consulted with the FBI about a case involving a serial killer. Very impressive. So after the introduction, he gets straight to work. So Ted immediately gets on the wrong foot with a very cliquey group of residents. There are a lot of residents in the medical center, but this particular group seems to be full of the standout members of the program. In particular, Jake, who seems to be the leader of the group. The second day goes a little bit better. Afterwards, he's invited to join the group at a local bar and then is left with the tab. And then Jake has a change of heart. He decides to stay with Ted for a bit, have a few more beers, and then they end up leaving the bar. So it turns out that Jake has a few rather questionable hobbies on the side, besides being involved with this program. And he invites Ted to participate in one of them, which involved a lot of unpleasant individuals. Y'all, it's dark. The next morning, Ted is hungover, and strangely, the very first cadaver that is up for them to process is the same guy that he met the night before. So they go through the process, taking samples, and their job is to determine the cause of death. Ted and Jake give their diagnosis for how the man died, and things sort of end in a stalemate. Later that night, he confronts Jake about the man, and he accuses Jake of killing him. That's when Jake reveals that him and the others that are in the cliquey, overly friendly group all participate in something that they call the game. The game where each of them provides a corpse and the others have to figure out how they died. At first he refuses until he gets a visit from Juliet, who refers the case of a man who murdered his wife and then attempted to take his own life. Ted decides to participate in the game. So apparently there's more to the game than meets the eye, because since his first contribution, a never-ending routine of drugs, and Ted and Juliet are becoming more and more involved with each other outside of the game, and all in all is starting to take its toll on Ted. He's sleeping in class. He seems distracted, and eventually his mentor shows up to give him a bit of advice. A break is coming up and his girlfriend is coming into town. There's a sort of weird confrontation between his girlfriend Gwendolyn and him and Jake and Juliet at a party that leaves them both a bit disoriented. Later, Gwen surprises Ted by telling him that she's actually finished up all the work that she needs to for law school and that she can stay with him during the rest of his residency. After the incident at the party, Ted gets a call in the middle of the night and it's Jake. He appears to be unraveling rapidly. He is killed at random with no particular purpose and there's no one else around. So clearly this was not a part of the game and Ted wants out. Juliet tries to convince him to stay as well. He says that he wants out. He does not want to be involved. Jake implies that he can manipulate evidence and pin him to several other crimes in such a way that would make it impossible for him to prove his innocence. So the group is meeting again and is short two members, Juliet and Ted. The others start talking and agree that both should be booted from the group, that they no longer want to have anything to do with them, and Jake agrees. His contribution to the game, as it turns out, is Juliet. And as they get started with their normal ritual, there's a huge explosion. A few hours later, Ted is showing up at the medical center to get to work as normal when he sees that there are ambulances and police, and Dr. Morris is there saying that these bodies were found in the lower levels, and unfortunately it was the group that 4 bodies were found. Ted confirms that there were 4 bodies found, not 5, and in fear for Gwen, hurries home, only to find Gwen dead, surrounded by photographs. Ted performs the autopsy on Gwen and determines the cause of her death. This brings Jake out of hiding to confront Ted. There's a final confrontation that leaves Jake paralyzed while Ben, another resident, and Ted begin the autopsy. And as the first shears are positioned to cut through the rib cage, there is a crack, and that's how the movie ends. So first, don't be put off by the trailer. This movie was much better than I expected. The cinematography is very well done. I love the transitions for some of the scenes. Like, for example, in one scene, Ted is going to make his bed, so he pulls the sheet up like this. And as it comes down, there's a slight transition and the color changes a little bit, and suddenly we're looking at the bottom of a corpse's feet and we're back in the lab. And I love those types of transitions for the film, these really seamless moments that help to aid in a lot of the different story elements, like time passing, for example, making sure that scenes blend seamlessly into the next scene. The unexpected angles or perspectives of some of the scenes really make it clear that, for example, that first night when Jake and Ted get super drunk and then Jake takes him to the place where he took him, it's like we're seeing the dark version of each of those characters. So the perspective is a little off, the color is changed, we're suddenly uncomfortably close to Ted's face because he gets sick and he vomits and we're right here. There are all of these really striking, really graphic, gross, or violent scenes, but also the way that they are shot or what they're paired next to take it to the next level. Like when Gwen and Ted leave that party, they go back to their apartment and they're all, loving with each other. At the same time, Juliet and Jake are together, and it is the exact opposite of that. Juliet turns Jake into a pincushion. It just took everything to a whole next level. And I think that is the point because it shows the escalation. It seems like they've been doing this for a minute. The game, I mean. All of the students, Catherine, Griffin, Juliet, Jake, Chip, all of them working together in order to make this kind of seamless game happen. You know, I mean, their contributions, basically killing someone, providing the bodies, disposing of the bodies, you know, making sure that if the bodies are already on record, that those records are edited so that they have like a seamless closed circle of production to keep this wackadoodle thing going. You know what I mean? And there are a lot of movies where that is not a circle, it is wide open, and so the mechanics of it kind of fall apart. But because it's so well written and so well thought out, it eliminates questions. It's like, how do you get the bodies in there? It's a morgue. It's full of dead people. It always is. Nobody's gonna look twice at them, you know? It's like, how do you get away with killing someone? Well, what did the medical report say? What did the test results say? And who runs those tests? Who writes up those reports? It answers all the questions that you might have for it. That's something that I really liked about it, is it's very smart. Also, I really like that they include, in addition to the diagnoses and kind of showing in short clips what the effects of those actions would do to a body, replaying the actual event for the sake of the viewer, I think was really helpful in emphasizing how brutal and like cruel a lot of this is. Because if we can't see it, then it's harder for the audience to connect with the victims in this case. If they just all show up as dead bodies, and like seeing them beforehand or seeing the crime as it is happening, I think it develops the characters more. There's less separation between the audience and the characters, because you can see that as they're figuring out the diagnosis and what caused the death of this person, they are clearly reliving it. So in that way, the audience is much closer to the characters, like uncomfortably close to the characters. And I think that works really well here. I also like and appreciate that certain questions were left unanswered, like Ted. Who is Ted? Who is he really? Because he's clearly very brilliant and he has all this set up for him. He has this reputation and all that, going to the best of the best, you know, performing at the top of his class. But who are his parents? We don't know. And I think that is done on purpose, because it could go either way. He could either be an orphan and it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't change how you feel about his character. Or they're also a part of the wealthy and elite, and it wouldn't change how you feel about his character, because he does not care about this other stuff. He cares about his work. That's what I think made his character so compelling and prevented you from writing him off right away, because he cared about the work so much and is not concerned with this other stuff, like keeping up appearances and all of that. I mean, he will do it. He is used to doing it. He clearly knows how to move within these circles, but what really genuinely fascinates him is the work that he does. And what I appreciated about their characters is that all of them are like that. It's at different levels, clearly, as we learn in the methods that they use to, you know, kill these people. But, you know, Jake is clearly someone who grew up on the outs. I don't think he came from money like a lot of them did, and is obviously trying to prove himself, very obviously manipulative, you know, being the ringleader of this whole circus. But that does not negate the power that he holds over all of them, and Ted at one point, until Ted realized that it's not just a game anymore, and that there will be a lot more at stake, and how unstable Jake is and unreliable Jake is, and decided to take matters into his own hands. So again, this is a gory, violent, graphic film. So if you can't handle it, I absolutely would skip it. But if you can, I'd recommend it. I'd give Pathology, I'd give it a 3 out of 5, like a solid 3 out of 5. There were some parts where I was like, this feels very stereotypical. Him coming home and there being a pipe next to his bed and his girlfriend finding it. Come on. That was clearly staged. It was designed to break them up. I was like, what is this? What are we doing? Y'all are supposed to have created these undetectable methods of murder, and yet we're doing this. stuff like that, you know what I mean? But it's still definitely worth a watch. You guys let me know what you think, and thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next time.